AA.
I recently purchased a greenhouse from Amazon, and overall I'm pretty happy with it. The size and features should fit our needs nicely, and I look forward to our first growing season. The vent windows are a great feature, but on this greenhouse they are all manually operated. I would like automatic vents to keep the temperature of the greenhouse at reasonable levels during the hot Georgia summers. To satisfy that need, I purchased a set of 4 automatic openers from Amazon. The shipment comes in one box with 4 smaller boxes containing the operating mechanism, piston, mounting hardware, and the installation instructions. Although the instructions aren't horrible, they are a little Chinglish, if you know what I mean, and I couldn't get them to work for my situation. So this video will show you how I installed the openers. First, I slid the piston shaft through the swivel nut on the operating mechanism, then into the small hole on the end of the opening shaft. I used the small pin to lock the piston shaft and the opening shaft together. You can see that I struggled just a little bit to get that pin in. Part of that was because I needed to let the shaft reposition a little bit so it wasn't interfering with the parts below it. It went in eventually. Once they are locked together, you can now screw the piston threads into the swivel nut. The key here is to ensure the swivel nut is positioned properly so that you don't cross-thread the piston threads as you're inserting this. I screwed this until about 1/4 inch of the thread extended beyond the end of the nut. If necessary, it's not a bad idea to put the assembled parts in the refrigerator. This will make it easier to install and align the opener into the greenhouse window. While the assembly is chilling, we can prepare the greenhouse window for the opener installation by removing part of the old hardware. I removed the window handle first. There are 2 small nuts, but leave the screws installed in the tracks. Once the handle is removed, remove the lower assembly by taking off the 2 larger nuts, but again, leave the existing screws installed in the tracks. Of course, this part is based on the configuration of my greenhouse. Your greenhouse may be different, but I do believe this is a fairly common setup, and so if nothing else, it should be able to give you some good ideas on how you can approach it for whatever your setup is. When the opening assembly is cooled enough that it is in the closed position, you can install it using the 2 small screws on the window and the 2 larger screws on the greenhouse. I started with the 2 larger screws on the greenhouse as I felt that would give me better stability. However, there was no room for my fingers, so I started the nuts using a telescoping magnet and some painter's tape. I snugged the nuts, but left enough wiggle room to move the assembly around for the window nut installation. I found this part to be a little bit awkward in trying to get everything lined up. The screws, the window, the bracket, and then be able to get the nuts placed on there. But if you take it slow and carefully, all of it should fit together. It may require some adjustment of the piston on the opening bracket, but for me, this worked out fairly well as I had it originally set up. There's a little more finger space in the window nuts, so when the first nuts slipped in the telescoping magnet and tape, I was able to start the first nut with my fingers. Okay, admittedly, this part took me a lot longer than what it really should have, but my excuse is I'm old and my eyesight isn't very good, and I get fat fingers that don't always fit into tight spaces very well. But again, I was able to get the nut started, and once started, then I could take a socket and snug it up at least just a little bit to ensure it didn't drop out while I was trying to get the nut onto the second screw. Once both nuts are on the window screws, go back and snug everything up, but don't over tighten. I left things a little loose until I was sure everything functions correctly. This was the fourth opener to be installed, so you can see the other ones are working as expected. They're closing all the way when it cools, and they open up when it gets warm. Overall, I'm very pleased with this product. The automatic openers are working the way that I hoped they would. I have no complaints. Other than some questionable instructions, this product has been exactly what I needed. I recommend this purchase for anyone with a greenhouse who wants their vents to open and close automatically. If any of that changes later, I'll post an update and let you know.